Another San Diego comic book con, and another year without any updates on Blade. I guess this film is never happening. Anyway, easily the biggest news out of SDCC this year was the announcement that Robert Downey Jr. will be returning to the MCU, but not as Iron Man, as Doctor Doom, for some reason. But before I get into it, I just want to point out how unintentionally hilarious I think it is when Joe Russo highlights the unlimited story potential of the Marvel multiverse, only then to have RDJ come out on stage wearing a Doctor Doom mask, as if saying, yeah, we could tell any story, go in any direction, but why bother with any of that when we can just bring Iron Man back and make him into Doctor Doom?
Proof of the unimaginable possibilities in the Marvel multi-universe.
Remember when Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home came out, and one of the bigger criticisms leveled at those films by fans was that characters like Vulture and Mysterio, you know, Spider-Man villains, were actually created indirectly by Tony Stark? Well, Marvel have just brought that stupid creative decision to its logical conclusion by making actual villains of other superheroes that have no connection to Tony Stark into variants of Tony Stark. It's really quite genius when you think about it. And gee whiz, the audience at SDC thinks it's just about the best idea they've ever heard. But don't let this reaction confuse you into thinking that this was actually good casting though. The audience at San Diego Comic Book Con would clap and cheer if they found out Woody Allen was cast as Doctor Doom. They clap at everything. It means nothing. Meanwhile, over here on Twitter, things are looking a hell of a lot less enthusiastic. And really, you can't blame these people for having issues with this casting choice. The Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom are one of the last great properties that Marvel Studios has in the bag. For some people, it is the last great property yet to be adapted into the MCU. The fans want a great Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom, and while the jury is still out on this casting for the Fantastic Four, they could be great, or they might not be, only time will tell. The jury is in from a fandom perspective on this Doom casting, and it's pretty mixed to outright negative. Here's my issue with this casting, and also a lot of other people's issue with it. You see, it's really dumb. Firstly, there is no reason why Robert Downey Jr. is the only actor that could play Doctor Doom.
The one person who could play Victor Von Doom.
This is bullshit. Young Joe here is trying to sell you on this idea that RDJ is the only one who could play Doom because the next two Avengers films have exactly zero hype around them and they need a big excuse, or in this case a big stunt casting, to get people interested. On your screen right now are a whole bunch of actors who could have, in fact, played Doctor Doom, and let's be honest, they'd probably do a better job than Robert Downey Jr. Secondly, why is it necessary to bring back Robert Downey Jr. to fill this particular role when he could easily have been brought back as an evil variant of Iron Man? Would that not have made more sense? Like, genuinely, does that not sound like a more interesting story idea than what we're getting with Doomsday? Personally, I just think it makes a lot more sense that if you're going to bring RDJ back, it should be for him to reprise the role he's famous for, not to play a totally different character. That's just going to be confusing for casual viewers. I understand that after his Oscar win, Downey probably wants to flex his muscles creatively, and playing a villain would allow him to do that. But why does that villain have to be Doom exactly? Downey was the biggest hero to come out of the MCU, and now he also has to be the biggest villain as well? So let's try and unpack this mess and try and figure out why RDJ has to play Doctor Doom. Let me ask you a question. Why is it necessary to have Doctor Doom played by Robert Downey Jr. and not, say, Mads Mikkelsen or any of the other obvious casting choices? Here's your answer. Because Marvel are more interested in stunt casting Doctor Doom than they are in doing justice to the character and casting an actor that would actually be a good fit for the role. Do you think Marvel Studios is splashing out this obscene amount of money for Robert Downey Jr. only for audiences never to see his face? That's a big thing about Doom. Doom famously never removes his mask. Not for anyone. The mask is a big part of Doom's characterization. Marvel Studios has a hype problem. The MCU has limped on since Endgame, and it's fair to say that no character in the MCU has reached the same level as Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. Marvel haven't really been able to get over a lot of these new characters with audiences, like they were able to with the original Avengers team. There's a distinct lack of hype around these new characters, and that's not the fault of these characters, by the way, or the actors who play them. It's just that the stories that Marvel have put these characters into have been, well, awful. I mean, are you excited to see the new Captain America again in Brave New World after his last appearance in this piece of shit? How about Thor? Are you excited to see him again after his last appearance in one of the worst superhero films ever made? Do you even know who any of these characters are? Yeah, it's fair to say Marvel haven't exactly elevated their characters to RDJ Iron Man levels with these projects. But the solution to this problem isn't and shouldn't be to just go back and sign up RDJ for another go-round. For the MCU to evolve and stick around, it has to grow past some of these characters. And yes, that means also the actors who played them to progress forward. There was a real chance here with Doom to do just that, by elevating another actor, maybe even a new and up-and-coming actor into the role and giving them the opportunity to put their own stamp on the MCU, in the same way that RDJ was allowed to with Iron Man. You know, give another actor a chance to stand in the limelight that RDJ was basking in for 11 years as the centre of the MCU. This casting is a backstep. It's not progress. Marvel have basically passed on the opportunity to do something innovative and bold, and instead opted for a much more safe option of bringing back their biggest star, hoping that hype alone will be enough to get people interested in the MCU again. There was a legitimate opportunity with Doom to move the MCU out of RDJ's shadow and have the next phase of Marvel movies defined by a new character. And Doom could have totally been that new character, but Marvel have totally blown that opportunity with this stunt casting. And don't get me wrong, I don't have any issues with RDJ coming back to the MCU. We all knew it was going to happen sooner or later. Like I said, if Marvel wanted him back to play Superior Iron Man or Iron Maniac or any of the other villainous versions of Iron Man, I would have been fine with that. I'd actually love to see the Avengers facing off against an evil variant of Iron Man. That sounds really interesting. I just don't like that Marvel are stamping all over the Fantastic Four mythology to bring RDJ back. You could bring him back in a lot of ways that wouldn't involve intrinsically tying the characters of Tony Stark, Doom, and by extension the Fantastic Four together. Marvel Studios are essentially handcuffing Tony Stark to Doctor Doom as if these characters are in any way connected. These characters have got practically dick all to do with each other in the comics outside of a few crossovers. But people are going to come out of these films thinking that Doctor Doom is actually just the evil version of Tony Stark. And as a guy who loves Doom, that just really irks me, man. Doom is his own character with his own backstory and motivations. This guy is, for a lot of people, the premier Marvel Comics villain. I feel the audience won't be able to appreciate Doom for the unique character, for the badass he is, when all they can see is the guy who played Tony Stark for 11 years. Now, if you're going to tell me in the comments to wait and see, maybe Marvel have a great story they want to tell with RDJ as Doctor Doom, I'll just go ahead and throw cold water on that right now. This casting wasn't born out of a great story idea that some writer had. The scripts for Doomsday and Secret Wars aren't even written yet. They've only just announced who the screenwriter is. Also, from the sounds of it, Matt Jackman, yeah, the guy who's currently directing the Fantastic Four film, it doesn't sound like he had any involvement in this casting decision whatsoever, which I think is actually really unfair to him, that he doesn't get to be involved in the casting decisions that actually have really big ramifications for his corner of the MCU and the stories he wants to tell. Somehow I get the feeling that he might have liked the creative freedom of telling stories in a universe totally disconnected from the main MCU Earth. No, this decision to bring Downey Jr. back was 100% a corporate one, not a creative one, born out of desperation, probably by Feige, who has the higher-ups leaning on him to do something drastic to get people interested in this franchise again. The MCU has to be bigger than Robert Downey Jr., man. It has to be bigger than any one character or any one actor. As much as I liked RDJ as Iron Man, as much as I liked him being the focal point of the first era of the MCU, it's time to give other characters, and yes, actors, the opportunity to step into his place. The Fantastic Four and Doom had the potential to fill the hole in the MCU Downey left behind when he died in Endgame, but Marvel are throwing that opportunity away with this short-sighted, panicky decision to rehire RDJ. The MCU isn't growing creatively with these kinds of decisions, it's regressing, retreating back to what worked before. It's a desperate move, don't mistake it for a creative one. That's the last thing it is. Yeah, so a bit of a rant about RDJ and Doctor Doom. Look man, I really like Doctor Doom. I really like the Fantastic Four. I want to see the Fantastic Four be elevated. I don't want to see it tied to Iron Man or Robert Downey Jr. I very much want it to be its own thing. And the Fantastic Four very much deserves to be its own thing. I thought the whole point of this new Fantastic Four film being set in the 1960s on an alternate Earth far removed from the main MCU was so it could be its own thing creatively. But now this franchise is saddled with the baggage of having a Doctor Doom that looks like Tony Stark for some reason. That seems like a really unfair thing to do to this franchise before it's even had a chance to get off the ground. But what do you guys think? Are you excited to see Robert Downey Jr. back again? What do you think of this Doom casting? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. And before you go, if you want to hit like, if you want to hit subscribe, if you want to hit that notification button, please feel free. It really helps us out here. And as always, thanks for watching.